start our lesson right now. So this is all about using MySQL, or in this case, Maria DB, which is a clone of MySQL, and Java to connect with MySQL so that we can write Java programs that access a database. So I'm going to start off with the document. Just in case you didn't know, a database is a series of tables. Inside each table, you have records, and every record consists of fields. A really good example of a database, which you probably don't have anymore, is a telephone book. Everybody used to have telephone books, and I assume that in this area, it was pretty thick book, probably about 2 or 3 inches thick. People used to use it in a baby's high chair to make a baby sit higher in the chair. They were so thick. But anyway, it's a really good example of a database, because what have you got inside of a telephone book? If you can remember, a telephone book had tables for each community in the area, right? For each city. And then what was in each table? A list of records, a set of records, a record for every person or company that wanted their phone number listed. What was in each record? The name, often the address, and the telephone number. So a phone book really was a type of database. Now, we're going to be using SQL. I like to call it SQL. Some people say SQL. They just pronounce the letters. I don't know, for some reason, I like SQL. Two syllables instead of 3. And this is a standard language that's used for accessing a relational database. By the way, the database is called relational because you can establish relations between the various tables that are in a database, and that's what makes it so powerful. So here are the big names. Of course, Oracle is the big kahuna in databases, run by Larry Ellison, who makes enough money to have a boat in the America's Cup race, and amongst other toys that he has. And of course, these are others. The Microsoft one is SQL Server. DB2 was big from IBM. But we're going to use MySQL because it was a long-standing free version that people use, and it's used by a lot of notable corporations and companies like these people up here. They use MySQL, and it's quick, relatively easy to use. But after it was taken over by Sun Microsystems and then Oracle, the people who operated, who made MySQL were concerned about it, so they made Maria DB a clone that'll always be free for us. These are some websites where you can learn about SQL. W3 Schools is darn good, by the way, and it has a nice feature that you can try various commands and get immediate feedback on what you enter. So I recommend that to you. W3 Schools is good for a lot of things, including Java, by the way. Now we're going to be working with a couple of different databases. We're going to be working with Example. It only has one table in it called Product. Here's what you can see. It's about vehicles. These are the fields. These are the records. The rows are the records. The columns are, we call the fields. PC Parts also is another one of our database, and it's got 3 tables, and it's got a customers table, a parts table, and an orders table. Now we have to install those, and I did send out a video, at least a link to a video on YouTube where you could establish these in your Maria database or MySQL. And we're going to play around with that in just a minute here. So that's what I'd like to do next, in fact. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to see if Maria is running. I think it is, but to know, I'm going to type in SER here after clicking on the Windows icon. And you'll notice that brings up the Services app. There's other ways to get to that, but that's a nice quick way. Now in the services, these are all the services that are running on my computer. And darn it, I forgot to start the recording, I think. Oh, no, it's going good. All right, so if you scroll down, it's alphabetical. You can see that I do have Maria and it's running. Now I could control it by opening that link up. I could stop Maria. Okay, I can restart it as well. And there's other things, other settings you can make. Now in my case, it's set up for automatic. Now that means it's going to always start up as soon as I start up my computer. If you don't want that, you can turn that off. You can control that by making it manual startup. Whatever you like. Okay, so I've got it running. Since it's running, I should be able to access it from the command prompt. And that's what I wanted to do for starters. Here's how the best way to do that. If we look for Maria in Windows here, I'm not sure what this is going to look like in on a Mac, but if I look at Maria here and if I expand it, there's a lot of really nifty stuff that is not available in MySQL. Like for example, right here, there's a link to a command line client, but there's also a command prompt here. This makes it really easy, but I'm going to go for the command prompt initially. So what we've done here is we've just got the environment ready for Maria. Now to log in, what we have to do is type in MySQL -u for user. We're going to log in as the root user, which you are, because you own your computer where you installed Maria. And then I'm going to put -p, which is a request for the password. That will try to connect me if I enter the password. Now, I suggested in the video that you use Sesame, a little joke about Arabian Nights, Open Sesame, as your password. And if you do, you should get the Maria prompt like this. Now, if you've got Maria going, follow along with me. Follow along with me, and we'll learn a little bit about how to use Maria DB here, or MySQL. Works the same way in MySQL, except instead of saying Maria DB here, it's going to say MySQL. Now, right now it says none, because we're not using any particular database at the moment. If we type in a few commands, I'm going to try show databases with a semicolon. You finish your commands with a semicolon. And you can see here that I've got a number of databases. Now I've already installed PC Parts and Java Book, which is the one that Liang gives us. That's how Maria manages the database that you created. Okay, so never mess with those. Now, if you want to work with a particular database, what you have to do is use the use command. So I'm going to try use example. Spell it right, of course. Semicolon to finish it. Okay, now you can see the prompt has changed, showing me that example is the active database. Now, what I'm going to try here is show tables. Let's see what's in that database. Remember, a database is a collection of tables. So let's see what's in there. Only one table called product. Okay, and that was reflected back in our document. Let's try something else here. Let's try the explain command. Explain product. This is a good command to know, because what that does is it tells you what the structure of the table is like. And in this case, you can see it tells me my field names are VIN, make, model, year, color, price, and it tells me what data type each of the fields is. There are lots of different data types in MySQL or Maria. Char is for basically think of that as like string, but it's a string that's got a maximum of 6 characters and should have 6 characters. Varchar is varchar 16, means a string as well, but it can vary up to 16 characters. Int obviously is for an int. Decimal obviously is for a number with decimal places. So you can think of that as like a double. Now, we don't want any of the fields to ever be empty. So the null field. We don't want that to be empty, so we put no here for not, that would be like not null. And we always have a primary key in the table. In this case, the primary key is the VIN, which is a unique number for a vehicle, as you probably know. Now, let's try using the select command. That's the workhorse. The most important part, I think, about using a database is how to retrieve records from a table. So let's try select star from product. The name of the table here is product. And when you select star from product, you get all the fields and all the records. That's what the asterisk means, right? That's a wildcard. That means all fields and all records. So as you can see, we got basically the same thing that was back in our document for our vehicles. Now, you can do all kinds of other things with a select statement. And in fact, you can make a lot of money if you get very skilled at it, because what you can do with a select statement can be very, very complex, particularly when you have multiple tables. You've got multiple tables connected together and you want to get a query by accessing multiple tables at the same time, something called a join. If you can do that effectively, you can hold down a pretty good job as a database administrator. Okay, well, we can try a few more. If you don't want all of the fields, you can specify the ones you want. Like maybe I just want make, model, and year. So I can spell out that those are the ones I want. And you always need to say from which table, and finish it with a semicolon. Okay, so you can get whichever fields you want in any order that you want, by the way. You don't have to follow the same order that they are by default in the table. But you can do more than this. You can add, for example, you could add a where. By the way, I'm just pressing arrow up to repeat the most recent command. That's a nice time saver. So we can go with where make equals Chevrolet. Maybe I just want to see the Chevys. That's all I got. I got those three fields, make, model, and year, only for the Chevs. That's just part of what you can do. Maybe what I'd like to see, the Chevrolets that are 2003 models. Well, I can use and specify 2003. Now, the year is in the file as an int. So notice I'm not putting that inside quotes. And notice you can use single quotes, by the way, for strings and varchar. So I get 3 records. There's only 3 records are Chevys with year 2013. Well, that's just a start of what you can do. There's much more that you can do with a select statement, but there's also insert statements for inserting records. You can delete records. You can modify records using the alter command, alter table. So there's quite a lot to learn about SQL. In fact, we have at least one course about SQL, our database course that somebody I think might have taken. And you definitely want to take that because it's a skill you'll need, regardless of what you do with computer programming. At some point, you're going to be using some access method of some way of storing your data. And likely, it's going to be a database. Now, nowadays, we've got new things like NoSQL databases that you can use as well. But don't give up on databases. They're so big. Okay, now let's move on. By the way, if you want to learn about MySQL, it's not too bad right here in the chapter. This is the PDF file for chapter 34, and these are some of the there's that login command. And you're the root user, user Scott, and you can also give each user a certain number of privileges. Generally speaking, the rule is for privileges, you give people what they need to know, right? You don't want to give them everything. You give your users what they need to know. Maybe you don't want to let your users, for example, have a delete privilege. Okay. And you'll see it as this goes on in chapter 34. It tells you how you can actually create a new database with the create command. And after you do that, now here's the command that we use to actually import. That does a complete import of the script.sql file. So those files, if you didn't look at the video, you want to look at that video, we do show you how in the video how to get those files. But there's the 3 files that you have to import. But you'll do that import with the source command here. But in order to make that happen, you have to put them in a particular folder in your MySQL installation on your computer. You got to put them in the bin folder, and all that is explained in the video. So make sure you watch that video if you haven't done so already. Now, there's others here about how to drop a table. Now, you got to be careful with that one. But when you create a table, you specify its field names and what types they are, and also the primary key. And incidentally, that's what's in those .sql files. Those .sql files, back in our page, our course page, these .sql files, what they do is they recreate the database from scratch. You could delete the database if you created this file, if you've done an export and created this file, you could delete the database and recreate it later. Because what this does is it runs those commands. Let's see, maybe I can demonstrate that to you. I'll just open up Drive D on my computer here, where I can save some stuff. And what I'll do is I'll download that PC parts, for example. And I'll pull it out of my downloads folder here. Whenever it arrives. Where is it? Oh, okay. Guess I gotta hit this here. All right, I'll get back to my Drive D. I could just drag this over. I'll just drag it right over here into my Drive D. And the reason I'm doing that, I just wanted to open it up with Notepad to show you what's in there. What you'll see in here are all the commands that are necessary to recreate the database from scratch. See right here, create database. And then here's where we're creating the tables. Here's where we're inserting the records into the table. Creating another table here and inserting more records. This is the orders table. And then finally the parts table. And we insert the records into it. So what we've got in these .sql files, they were created by exporting. I did an export. I actually did this with PHP myadmin, which is a program that we use in our PHP course, which is very much like Heidi SQL. And I created this. It's called creating a dump. You just dump the entire database out to a file. But you can then recreate the entire database with it, or send the file to another person at a different location, and then they can recreate the database on their machine. So that's what's in those .sql files. Okay. So having done that, the next thing that I wanted to look at was, let's see what we can do with this in Java. So I have the, did you guys lose me for a few seconds? I see him cut out. Yeah, I had a message on my screen that my internet connection was unstable. Didn't like that at all. Sorry about that. I'll try to make up for it here. If you hear a little whimpering, it's my beagle wants in my room here. But as soon as I let her in, she'll want to get out. So I'll just let her sit there. Okay, so here's the chapter 34 project file, the examples. And first one I'd like to take a look at here is this connect. Take a look at the code here. We're going to import a number of different classes here, as you can see. And the program we're going to run is connect. We have to create a connection object. And then we use our driver manager to get a connection. And we're going to be using port 3306. That's the default port that on your computer that MySQL uses. We're going to be using it in localhost. That means on your local machine. This is the name of the database that we're going to be loading or connecting to. This is our username, and this is our password, of course, here. So if I run this, because I've got Maria running, this should be okay. And I do have that database installed. If you followed the video and installed the databases as described in it, this should work for you too. If not, you've got a problem. Houston, we have a problem if it doesn't work for you. So if this doesn't work for you, you've got to go through the video, that YouTube video, carefully and install Maria and install the databases, and then this should work for you. Make sure you use Sesame. That's another reason why I didn't want to use MySQL. If you use MySQL, you would have had a different password, obviously, for MySQL. And two versions of MySQL, big problem, okay? Better to have two different databases. And MySQL and Maria work alongside each other without interfering with each other, which is very nice. So at this point, I'm going to go back to the document for a second here. And we'll talk about JDBC, Java Database Connectivity is what that stands for. And you have to have a driver. This MySQL connector J, that's a reference to the jar file. And now let's just see where that jar file was. That jar file is back here in Eclipse. And if I open up this folder right here, there it is right there. MySQL connector java.jar. Okay. Notice it's MySQL. It's not a Maria product. It's MySQL, but Maria uses it. So you have to put that in your project when you create your project for your assignment. Now, if you want to add to your, when you make your assignment project, what you want to do is you want to create a source folder in your project folder. You can do that in a source folder called live. Drag the jar file into that, and then select the jar file, right click, and build path, add to build path. I think if you do that, that will properly add the jar file to the build path so that it will be accessible inside your project. Okay, if you have a problem with that, let me know and I'll try to help you out with it. Any questions so far, folks? I don't know. Have you, okay, Carl, good to know you're connected okay. Anybody else connected okay?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, did you get a connected okay message?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I used MySQL, the web version of it. I never installed it to my computer. So you want us to like install like the real thing?
Well, Well, I would recommend that you install Maria.
Okay, so install Maria and just
Yeah.
use Sesame as the
Yeah.
root, and I'm all set. All right, awesome.
Yeah, just use Maria. I think you'll find it's great. Works very nicely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so look at that YouTube video. I think we've got it in our page. Somewhere in our page, I believe we do have it.
Yeah, no, I see it. I'll look at it.
Okay, good, good.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So back to the document here for a second. Yeah, if you can't connect, you'll get a SQL exception in the red screen of death. So that's why we use try and catch blocks here. But this is the basic syntax here. Your URL, your username, and then your password. Now, if you want to create a statement, which is usually what we want to do, particularly if we want to do a query, when you use the select statement, it's called using a query. You're querying the database. And it's the connection object will be used to create a statement object. And you create the statement object from your connection object with the create statement method. We're going to call our statement just ST here. Now, the reason for doing that is you want to create what's called a result set. And a result set is what you get when you run a select query, but it's going to be in memory. The result set's going to be in memory. It's not going to be displayed on the screen until you use printline to print out each of the records. So the first thing you have to do is you have to use the execute query method of your statement object. Our statement object is named ST. So execute query, and then here's the actual query. Select star from, and then whatever your table is. Obviously, that's going to get all the fields and all the records by using the wildcard. But what we're going to get from this is a result set object. And the result set is the same thing that we get when we enter a command from the command line. Like this is the result set of this command. But you get it in memory. Okay, it doesn't print out for you until you make it get printed out by using some print line statements in your Java code. So don't get confused by the concept of a result set. It's just the same thing that you would get if you executed the select command in the command window. Now, we can then go through the result set by using a loop. We can loop through the result set and get every row in the result set and print them out. There's a getString method and a next method that you can use for that. The next method will just go from one, just in the similar way that an iterator works for a collection. It like has next, right? It's the same concept. It'll move from one row in the result set to the next one. And we can use the getString method to access a particular field or column. So let's see if SQL vehicle works. SQL vehicle. It's another one of our examples here. Here it is. Let's just take a look at it before we run it. And what we've got here is, this time we're still using the example database, and we know that it only has that one table in it called product. So after we connect, then in another try catch block, we're going to try to execute our query. So we create a statement object. Now notice here we're using the fully qualified name to get the statement object. That just means we don't have to import, right? If you do that, you don't have to import. So I think if we look at the top of this, we'll have not so many imports. Oh, we still have 3, but we don't have the statement class showing up here because we're using the fully qualified name for it here. Okay, so we use our connection object and its create statement method to create a statement object called ST. Then we'll use it and its execute query method to execute this particular query. So we're going to get all the records and all the fields from the product table. Now we use a while loop and use rset.next, same idea that we used with collections, with hasNext. And we're going to use the getString method. And you'll notice that they're indexed. Each of the fields that's going to be in our query is indexed, but surprisingly, starting at 1. Now, you would have expected that to start at 0 to be consistent with everything else you've learned about Java. But in fact, the first column is called column 1 in the results set. So we're going to, as you can see, we're going to generate a string here with concatenation and spaces. So we've got a bunch of get strings and spaces, one big long statement on multiple lines with concatenation. And we've got a catch SQL exception if there was a problem. But otherwise, we should print out the records here. So let's see if that works out. Yeah, worked out fine. That's the output that you should get from that program. So we're, ta-da, we're accessing the database with Python. We're accessing the product table in the example database. I said Python with Java. I was doing this the other day with Python, but that's how you do it with Java. Okay, that's one way anyway. But there's more to learn, naturally, much more to learn. But we're not going to learn everything about this, though, by the way. It's quite a bit to it. So if you want to do updates, deletes, or inserts, you don't use execute query. Notice that we used execute query back there. You use execute update for those operations. Okay. This will those execute update will return an int equal to the number of rows changed by the command. Single quotes are okay. You can have single quotes inside double quotes, by the way, because when you make your query, it has to be a string, but inside that string, you want to refer to particular fields or columns inside that string. Well, you can use single quotes inside the double quotes to do that. It's pretty hard to figure that out by looking at this, which is a single quote and which is a double quote. And there's not much you can do about that with this font, I guess. But you notice that we're using strings and concatenation to do an insert here. Now, this is how insert works, by the way. The insert statement works. Insert into table name, and then you use the values and open a set of parentheses and specify what you want to center. Now, I haven't specified the fields. Usually, when you use insert, you would also specify the fields, but it is optional. Then if we run execute update with the string that we've created here, our SQL string, that should do an insert. And I just want to refer to the chapter for a second to show you where the insert is covered, so you can see the way that the syntax goes for that insert. Starts right here, simple insert, update, and delete. Yeah, so usually it works like this: insert into table name. Now they've made this optional, but typically you specify the names of the fields here, and then use values and another set of parentheses to specify the values for those fields. But you notice that this is optional because it's showing up in square brackets. That means it's optional. And the thing is, if you do leave that out, take a look at this line here. The column names are optional, but if they are admitted, you have to put in all the values must be entered. Okay, you got to put them all in. It is possible to leave some out, but not if you don't put the parentheses in for the before the values. Okay, so this is actually a better command here. Insert into, this is the name of the table. These are the fields, and these are the values that are going to go in those fields. So this value here is going to go in this field. This value here is going to go in this field, etc. Okay, that's how you do an insert. That's how you add a record to a table. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, let's try this parts ordered. Parts ordered. I haven't tried all these myself today. Let's hope they all work. Parts ordered. Don't even have it. Don't even have that one. I probably got rid of it because it didn't work. Okay, so skip that one. I should too bad I didn't try that earlier, or I would have deleted it from the document. Sorry about that. Now you can do complex operations with multiple tables. We're not going to require you to do it, but you should be aware of it. And this is where you make the big bucks as a database operator. It's called a join. Tables can be connected to each other by having common fields. Usually you have a primary key in one table and a foreign key of the same data in another table, or possibly even more than one table. And if that's the case, you can make what's called a join. Liang has one called fine grade Java, which I think works, but you have to know what to enter for it to work. So I'm going to actually copy that value right there and paste it in when I run this program called fine grade, which I think we do have it. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So let's see. This is using a different database. Okay, this is going to be using the Java book database that Liang gave us. Here it is down here. Here's the connection. You're using a separate method to get the connection, as you can see, initialize DB. And we're going to connect to the Java book database as root user. And it's got quite a few tables in it that Liang gave us. And we're going to make our connection here. After making the connection, we're going to try to create a join. Let's see what the select statement is here. Yeah, look at the select statement. Look at the query here. Pretty substantial, right? Notice they're using multiple tables. Multiple tables. It says from student, enrollment, course. 3 different tables are being used in this one query. It's a complex task doing a join. I'm sure you've covered that in your database course. Let's see if this thing works. Now I've got to enter that value that I copied for this to work, because it does require specific values. Oh boy. Let's go back and see exactly what I need for that. Okay, I need this for the SSN and 4 1s and a 3 for the course ID. Okay, so let's go back and run it. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 3. Jacob Smith, his grade in database systems is a C. Well, that's pretty cool. If we were to go back, I still have my command line open. I'd like to take a look at that database. So I'm going to type in use Java book. That's the one Liang made for us. Let's go with the show tables. And you're going to see that there's quite a few tables in here. Look at them all. Lots of tables. Now, which ones were used in this particular query? Where we're using student, enrollment, and course. Okay, let's see what's in the enrollment table. Let's go with select star enrollment. As you can see, there's 4 different columns. Socials, socials, course IDs, and date of registration, as well as the grade. Some of them haven't finished the course yet, I guess. Let's see what's in student. I can press arrow up to save a little bit of typing. Okay, there's Jacob Barb Smith. And see there, that's his SN. That's the primary key in this table. That's the primary key. And if we look back up at the previous one, you'll notice this is a reference to Jacob Smith right here, right? Because the social is also in this table. And this is why we call these relational databases, because the SSN in this table is the primary key, which uniquely identifies Jacob Smith. It also uniquely identifies this as his course and his grade. And they are connected. Here it's called a foreign key. Back in this table, it would be the primary key. And you can make a join if you have that primary and foreign key relationship established. Okay. Just going to carry on here. Let's see what else we can do here. Prepared statement. Now, this is interesting. I'm not sure if we have an example of this. We do have this one here. Let's see if we do have that one. Yes, we do. We have fine grade using prepared statement. Well, this is interesting because this allows you to make a statement using what's called parameterized SQL statements. You can use question marks as placeholders for parameters. There are some examples on page 1197, and that, of course, is in our in this book here on page 1197, which of course is not. I don't know what the number of that is in here. Might be able to do a search on it. Let's see. Control F is how you search, right? Let's look for prepared statement. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to look for the next one. Here's all the information about prepared statements. And here's what it looks like. There's how you can tell you got a prepared statement. See those question marks? Okay. Those are the values that are going to be found in the query when you execute the query. So this is like a template for the statement that we're going to actually execute. So if we look at that program, fine grade using prepared statement, once again, it's got a method here called show grade. That's what we're actually going to use to find the grade. It's got our initialized database, so that establishes our connection to the right database. And here's our query. And notice there's the question mark, another question mark. So that's how you can tell that this is a prepared statement. Now, when we go to use it, here's where we make the connection. The first question mark in that prepared statement is going to be for the SSN. The second question mark in that prepared statement is going to be for the course ID. Okay, notice we only had two. Only had two question marks here. So here's where we establish what they're actually going to be, what actual values are going to go in those particular locations in our query. So let's give this one a run and see if there's any special instructions. Okay, we're going to use this. I'm going to copy this one. And we're going to use 4 1s and a 2 for the course ID when we run this one. So here we go. Paste that one in there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 2. All right, George Heinz, he got a B on Intro to Java 2. Okay. Now, yeah, and those values were extracted because we entered those particular values in the text boxes of that GUI, such as it was. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. Now, here's something that you can do. You can create a stored procedure. I don't know if I want to try this. I'm not going to require that you know this, but you can actually create stored procedures which you can store in your database, and then you can execute them. It's like creating a function. It's like a custom function that you can create inside your SQL database. And in this case, we're going to count. I'm going to count students with a particular name and first name and last name, it looks like. But I don't think we have. I don't think we have an example of that. Let's see. No, I'm sorry, we don't have that one to run. But it's something that you can do. And the final concept here is metadata. Metadata, that's just data about something. Meta always means that. Database metadata is just general information about your database, such as the driver name, the driver version, etc. You can get that from this particular interface. The result set metadata is a more interesting one because it can give you a count of how many rows are in the result set. It can also give you the names of the columns, so you don't have to use that get string method and a numerical value. For example, you can get the column count with resultset.get metadata.get column count. That'll tell you how many rows are in the result set. And then you can get the column names themselves like this. So you can determine what the column names are in a particular database table. We do have test database metadata. Let's see what we can get from that. Okay, here we're going to use the Java book database, the one Liang gave us, and we're going to use the database metadata interface. We're going to connect, and then we've got lots of methods here that we can use. We can get the URL, we can get the username, we can get the database product name, the version of our database, the driver name that we're using, that's like our MySQL connector, J, and the version of it. Wow, let's see what we get for the output here. Get quite a bit of information about our Java book database with that metadata, Java database metadata interface. So you can tell, it tells us a lot of information about our connector, our connection, and our database. 512 columns. Okay, information about the database itself. But more interesting to you probably is this one, the result set metadata, because it'll give you information about your result set. So let's give that a try. We're going to use, again, the Java book database. We're going to establish a connection. We're going to then create a result set by executing this query here. And then we're going to get some information about that result set using the result set metadata interface. And all we have to do is use the name of our result set and the .get metadata method in order to do that. Then we can loop through that and determine get the column names. In this this loop here is going to give us column names. I would have liked to see parentheses around that personally, like this. But as you know, a single statement is okay inside of a loop. without braces. But this should show us the column names in fields. Should be left aligned in 12 characters here. And then we're going to go through the result set and get the actual data out of each one of those columns with get object. So let's see what we get. Yeah, much better way to access the data in the table rather than using getString. So that's basically the very same thing. Select star from enrollments. That's the very same thing that we had back here, right? Select star from enrollment. Get the very same output. Of course we should. So that is a really useful one. The Resultset Metadata gives you a way to access the fields very nicely using a loop like this. Actually, we have two loops, as you can see. We've got the for loop embedded inside the while loop. So the while loop is going to go through each record, and then inside each record, we have to go through each column that's in the row and access the data that's in that column using this. That is pretty cool. And I think that's all we have. Liang had a couple others here. Find user, no, find user tables. Did we look at that one? This one's going to show you the table names by using the database metadata. So we'll see what tables are in a particular database. That's also useful. That's kind of like show tables, right? Like issuing the show tables command shows you all the tables that are in the database, Java book database. So that's just a little bit about it. Now, what we want you to do, what's the assignment? What we want you to do is create a GUI using JavaFX. Make a GUI that you can use to query a database. So what we'd like you to do is construct a select statement. Construct a query by using a GUI. Now, in order to do that, what you need is, you need to use, obviously, text fields, right? You could use text fields. You could use radio buttons. You could use checkboxes, right? Or any other types of control that was covered in chapter 16, I believe it was, about JavaFX. So you have to make your own GUI. I unfortunately don't have one to demonstrate to you because I'm on my home computer here. I had some wonderful ones that I could show you right back in my office. On my office computer, I've got some really very, very fine ones that were created by former students in this course, but unfortunately, I don't have them here. I might be able to dig them out of my courses by going back through previous semesters. So I'm going to try to do that, and I will. I won't actually send you the code. That would be a giveaway. But what I will do is maybe make a little video showing you how they work, and might give you some ideas on how you could make your own project for your assignment. But basically, what we want you to do, we'll just take a look at the assignment in my courses here for a second. And what we want you to do is make a GUI to retrieve records from the customers table in the PC parts database. we want you to add at least 2 new records before you submit. So make a few records using the insert command, the insert statement. You could do that from the command line. The GUI should allow the user to specify the desired fields, the desired order, and a where condition. Display only the desired fields in the desired order for the desired where condition. Now, the GUI is up to you. It's a totally creative thing. So what you have to do is think about it for a while. And the tricky part is you have to construct the entire select statement, the entire query string. You have to create that by analyzing what the user does with the GUI. That could be button clicks, checkbox clicks, radio button clicks, entries into text fields, and so on. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a start on it. Here's what you want to do probably for a starter. I'm just going to open a text document to show you what I'm talking about here. Open a text file here. Not sure where that went. Where that is, I do not know. I thought I just opened a text document. I guess I'll have to do that on my drive D. So I do that right here. Okay. I won't even bother giving that a name, but I'll just open it up and show you what you have to do. So here's what you have to do. You have to start off with something like this: string query equals. Now, you know that we're going to be using the table customers in the PC parts database. Well, you don't have to start with use or anything, but what you do have to start with is select and that's it. That's what you start with, right? Now you have to decide what fields to add on to that by using possibly text fields, perhaps in your GUI. Maybe you'd like to have some checkboxes for particular fields that would be added to the query string. But basically you have to start like this, and then later on in your code, like maybe after you read a checkbox, for example, and then you could, after reading that checkbox, you would say query plus equals, right? You're going to add on to that string. And you notice I put a space here, right? Because you've got to put the spaces in too. And then the query might be whatever the field name was. Maybe it was name. And then you want to put a comma after it, right? Because when you construct the select statement and you have various fields that could be listed in here, we don't know what the user is going to select. We want the user to be able to specify which fields are going to show up. We don't want just star. So when you use a series of field names, they have to be separated by commas in the select statement. It's like back here. Let's just review a little bit of that. I'm going to use a different database. I'm going to go to use PC parts. And that's where that table is. If we show tables, we'll see that the customers table is in there. Okay, so if I select star from customers, I get all the fields, all the records, right? But what we would like to do is get a limited number of these. But first of all, we want you to add a couple of records, okay? So if you want to add a few records, you can make up the names. The customer ID should be added automatically because it's what's called a auto insert field. You don't have to actually enter that. That's automatically inserted. So you just enter the name, address, city, state, and zip when you create 2 new records. Now, then let's say I limit this a little bit. What I'm going to try is I'm just going to choose the name and the city. Notice I have to use a comma between them. So you've got to figure out a way of constructing the query this way with commas in between them. Now, what I would like to do, though, is try, for example, where we want you to put a where clause in there too, where city equals, and in this case, it's going to be Clearwater. Two of them. And I want to show you the order by, which we didn't show you earlier, but you can use order by to sort them. So I would like to order them by, I'll order them by name. And that should order them by name in ascending order by default, alphabetically. So let's, oh. Unknown column name. I see one. Oh, I didn't put from customers in here. That's the other thing that you have to append on here. Okay, this, I forgot to put my from customers, where city equals Clearwater, ordered by name. Now notice the names come out alphabetical. Avery came out before Kerr. Okay, if I had specified order by name DESC, I would get them in reverse alphabetical order, descending order. Kerr followed by Avery. Okay, so that's the type of query that you have to develop from the GUI. You want to have a where clause in it. So you're gonna do it by appending onto a string, gradually appending onto a string from the GUI, from whatever the user does with the GUI. And then you're going to have a button to execute the query. And then you could show the query. Probably the best place to show a query is in a, I would think in a text area. But you can put it in a text area inside of a scroll box. So that would be rather nice too. Okay. Any questions about that, folks? Now I will try to show you a couple of examples if I can find them from former students. I guess if I can't find them, I'll make one up. I'm pretty sure I don't have anything to show you. I just want to make sure I don't have something hidden in my courses that I might be able to share with you. So many windows open here. I hate it when it's off the screen like that. I'm gonna have to do the Alt-Tab trick to get that up again. Just missed it. It's off my screen. Can't find it. I'll open it up in Boxfire, Box. I'll be right with you. Hang on. I just might have something that I can share with you. Not sure. Okay, I got Firefox going, and I'm going to go to chapter 34. Okay, I do have something I can share with you. Here's an idea. It's not a particularly great one, but here's the GUI. And as you can see, we've got checkboxes for the fields. And here's a text box for the where clause. Now this is missing the order by. So we also need, I guess, radio buttons for order by, since there's only 2 ways to go for ordering. So in this case, the user selected name, cust ID, name, address, and state. So that's what we get. All the records, but just the name, address, and state. As you can see. And over here, we've selected a different list, but we specified a where clause of city equals Tampa. So we get just these records. So that might give you an idea of what to do for your GUI, but it doesn't have to be like this. Maybe you can do something better. And by the way, this is missing the order by. It should have a button for order by. Possibly you could have radio buttons would work pretty well for that, I guess, since there's 2 ways to order. Or you could use another blank. You could use another blank text field for how to order by, and then specify the name of the field with another text box. Okay. Now here's the thing. You're going to make make your select statement by concatenating a bunch of stuff together. And I don't have the order box here, but the field name list requires comma separators, but the last one has to be removed. Okay, so when you are specifying, like here, when you're specifying a list of fields, in this case, notice there's no comma after the city. But if you were doing this from the GUI, you would put the comma in after the city because the user might select another field. So you've got to delete the trailing comma from your string before you add from customers to the string. Okay, very important point. And there's multiple ways that you could do that. You could use substring, for example, to do that. I hope that helps. Any questions, folks? I'm sure you have a lot. This is a challenging topic, to be sure, but we've got a while to go. Oh, you couldn't get it working, Jen? Oh, you couldn't get it on your PC or your Mac? Wow.
Yeah, I think I definitely was. I think I was doing something incorrectly. I think it's user error. But my SQL is working great on both my Mac and my PC. So,
okay, well, use it then.
Okay, I mean, I'm still gonna play around with Maria, but will that screw anything up though if I submit my assignment not using Maria? Like you'll still be able to
not at all.
it. Okay,
that'll be fine. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Cool.
Yeah, if you've got MySQL, the reason that I wanted to lead you away from MySQL is that you might have already used it for something, and I wouldn't want to interfere with it.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't taken that class yet, so
okay.
I should be okay.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, if you have taken the class and you, some of you might have, you already have MySQL on your computer and you're having trouble with Maria, which, gosh, it's pretty straightforward installation, but maybe it's weird on a Mac, I don't know. There you go with Macs, don't get me started. The thing is, you just have to be real careful with the password. So you might not, if you've already got it installed, you probably don't have Sesame for your root password, and that's okay. Just let me know what your root password was when you submit your code, and I'll change it on my system. Obviously, I'll have to use my root password in order to run your programs. So I always have to edit your file slightly so it'll run when I'm creating it for you. Any other questions, folks? An old PC? Okay. It should work on an old PC. You know, if you got an old PC, you know what you should do with it? Put Linux on it.
Oh, you told me that. Yes, I need to go back and do that. And you told me, yeah, I need to. Now that I have time, I can do
Yeah,
that.
right. Yeah. Yeah, if you have a little time in your hands, which you may very well have some time. If you have an older computer, by all means, get Linux Mint. Linux Mint, current version is 19.3. And it's very Windows-like, and it's great. And you can set up a firewall on it, and it's a very secure environment. And it'll run fine on an old PC.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, I hope you're okay with this. It's kind of a complex thing to present, and I know I wasn't very smooth, but I hope you got the idea. So really, the actual program that you have to make is not that difficult. It's just getting the query developed from the GUI. That's the tricky part. All right, good luck, folks, and be safe. And if we don't see you next week, have the best summer you can during this damn coronavirus lockdown, shutdown, whatever. Be safe. So I'm gonna log off now, and I will post a video to this at the very top of the chapter 34 section in my courses. Have a good one. Brad out.